Good afternoon. This is Tim Ashe. I'm the president of the Vermont Senate. Thanks for joining for my daily 5:30 update on Vermont's response to the COVID-19 virus. I'll continue to do these 5:30 live feeds every day until they stop being helpful. After each one of these sessions, I receive a number of emails and comments asking questions or looking for more information. So I'll keep doing them as long as it's providing useful information to people in the public so that we can better get through this crisis together. I'm going to focus on a handful of updates from today, and we'll try to respond to some of the questions that have been coming up and give you some idea about how you can participate listening in on legislative deliberations tomorrow in ways that might be helpful. So I'm going to start by giving an update on the unemployment insurance situation. As everyone who has a friend who has had to call the hotline in the last few days knows, the thousands of people calling the system all in a 2 or 3 day window of time was making it virtually impossible to get through to the hotline. So the state has now greatly expanded the number of people answering phone calls to help people get enrolled so that they can start getting their unemployment payments as quickly as possible to help them pay their bills. More important even than that, I think, is that today the Department of Labor's website, if you go to it, has an online initial application form so that you do not have to endure the busy signals that people have been getting, but can at least get your application started. You can go online, you'll see all the information it requires you to put in to get the process started, including driver's license info and some personal information. The site is secure. The Department of Labor will require you to provide this either over the phone or on the online platform. So make sure that you take a look at it, get all the information, and then you should be able to get through that process pretty quick. But it goes without saying that our Department of Labor has never experienced anything like this, and so I know how stressful it is to not have the ability to immediately get on the phone and make sure that you can start accessing the benefits to which you're entitled, but be as patient as you can in light of the fact that there are thousands and thousands of people all trying to access this system in a very short period of time. I want to thank one constituent who called me today with a concern, and another who posted this on social media about receiving collections calls from a Vermont hospital in light of the lack of or reduction of income or lack of income altogether for many people. The collections calls seem particularly untimely, and I want to thank University of Vermont Medical Center. When reached, they said they were going to cease for the time being any collections calls for bills that are outstanding. So obviously that doesn't make these things go away, but in this short window of time, we want people to pay for their basic services first and not be hounded by bill collectors. So that's good news, and I want to thank UVMMC for being responsive very quickly when confronted with that question. Also today, the Public Utility Commission, for those of you who don't follow state government, that's a term that might put you to sleep. The Public Utility Commission is the regulator of all electric utilities, gas utilities, and a variety of other providers of certain kind of core services in our lives. They issued an order today that will prevent until, I believe, mid-April or late April, any involuntary shutoffs of gas, electric, or telecommunications services. To put that in simple terms, involuntary means them shutting you off because of failure to pay or inability to pay. So the Public Utility Commission, which is effectively the court that oversees all of the regulated utilities in the state, has said there will be no shutoffs for the foreseeable future. People's inability to pay their bills because of loss of employment or a substantial reduction in income shouldn't mean you can't put on the heat, turn on the lights, or have basic access to the outside world. So that's good news. Also, just about an hour ago, the United States Senate voted and passed what the United States House had previously sent over last week. The vote was 90-8. I'll tell you, I find it a little discouraging that there were 8 U.S. senators who did not vote for this relief bill. In that bill, it provides benefits for people who collect unemployment insurance as a result of the virus, result of businesses shutting down, result of being home, having to care for kids, and not being able to be in the workforce. It also provides funds to provide direct grants to many small businesses who do not pay into the unemployment system, so would not otherwise be qualifying to get unemployment benefits. So it's going to help small businesses, many employees who are out of work, and we'll do other things around our state's Medicaid program. Again, this could put you to sleep if you don't often think about state budgets. Medicaid is a substantial piece of Vermont's state budget. We expect to get a substantial infusion of emergency Medicaid cash to help us with our existing increase in utilization by our Medicaid enrollees, but also knowing that we are likely to get a whole wave of new people who are going to be moved on to Medicaid as a result of job loss or income reduction. So that is good news. Also, the federal government has announced that not that they are going to extend the April 15th tax filing deadline, but they are going to basically not charge any penalties for a 90-day period for failure to failure to pay precisely what you owe, which is effectively a 90-day extension of your tax filing deadline. We'll know a little bit more about how all that's going to work in the coming days. But the key is what they're saying is if you don't have the ability to pay what you otherwise would owe on your 2019 income, by not paying what you otherwise would owe, there will be no financial consequence. It will basically be like a zero interest forbearance of your obligation to pay federal taxes. The Vermont Tax Department, I've received many calls and emails, as have my peers in the Senate and the House, related to business and individuals' ability to pay taxes in the days, weeks, and months ahead. By Friday, we anticipate the Vermont Tax Department issuing somewhat similar guidance that will not change the filing deadline, but will allow people to basically miss that deadline in terms of how much they pay without suffering financial penalties. Obviously, you're paying your taxes now based on your income in a very different era at this point, and we know that that's not going to be possible for many people. So the tax department will be issuing guidance, we believe, no later than end of day Friday. So that's information I'll be able to present with a little bit more clarity in a subsequent update. But do urge you, especially if you're a small business, to take a look at the tax department's website for guidance on that. I also received a question last time out about the Small Business Association Disaster Assistance Program. The SBA, which is a federal program, is going to be providing cash zero interest loan support basically to qualifying small businesses. Vermont is not yet on the list of eligible locations for small businesses to qualify for this assistance, but it is not a question of if we're going to be eligible, it's just a matter of timing. Each state receives from businesses a declaration of how this crisis is impacting their income. The state tallies up all of those experiences that are presented and then sends it as a package to the federal government. And once a certain threshold is met, that whole state or region becomes eligible for this particular federal assistance. We expect that within 24 or 48 hours, Vermont will then be on the SBA disaster assistance eligibility list, which means that's the moment small businesses can go on the SBA website and seek all the resources that would be really helpful. Also want to point out that obviously our food service industry has received a real shock to the system, and because of the order of closure required them to close for normal operating business, but does allow delivery and takeout. There are certain protocols that have to be followed to make sure it's done safely. But there are a number of restaurants who are now wanting to make sure the public understands that they are there as an option for takeout or delivery. I know that 7 Days has put together one link on their website which has all of the restaurants by location and by county. So that's an area that I would strongly encourage you to look, and I'm presuming there are other sites that are putting out that information as well. The Senate has been asking our staff to look into this issue of hoarding and also the issue of price gouging. Right now, we have not heard any indication that Vermont retailers are doing any price gouging, although we have seen people online trying to charge an arm and a leg for toilet paper. That's the new world order we're in. But hoarding is the issue that we're very concerned with. Right now, there are many shelves at supermarkets and stores throughout the state that don't have basic items for daily living. We have all seen the pictures of people bundling in their arms huge rolls of toilet paper, cleaning supplies, and so on. Really, really hope that we all take seriously the need to be thinking about the collective good here. If you walk out with every last item that was on a shelf, whether it was toiletries or cleaning supplies or something, that means no one else is able to get it. Some of the people who need it might be people who are particularly vulnerable or susceptible to coronavirus in the first place. So we have been looking into what measures might be taken to protect all consumers so that they have access to basic goods. The good news is that the Vermont Retail and Grocers Association, which is made up of both large supermarkets but also smaller community markets, have been on their own moving towards a variety of strategies to make more items accessible to more people. One of the things that we really ask is that many of the stores and restaurants are looking right now at, many of the supermarkets and stores are looking to have restricted hours that are restricted only to older Vermonters or pregnant women. It turns out pregnant women and their soon-to-be offspring might be particularly susceptible to infection. So some grocery stores and markets are trying to limit certain hours of the day for those populations. It's absolutely critical that if they do that, the rest of us respect that to allow people to be in and out without the greater likelihood that they're going to be infected by someone else. I'm actually receiving comments now about certain locations that are, if accurate, and I do not doubt the people who are posting it, charging prices which are absolutely exorbitant for certain paper goods. And I'll make sure that the Attorney General's office receives that because it's not right for people to take advantage of the public at a time like this by dramatically increasing prices. I should add, the state of California has put in very, very strong measures to protect against price gouging at this time, which people would think twice, let's put it that way, if those applied here. So we're going to make sure that we're not seeing that kind of behavior. We'll follow up on all of the instances that people right now are posting, suggesting that that might be occurring. Each day at 4 o'clock, the Senate and House leaders are doing a joint phone call. Each day we are receiving very helpful and comprehensive information from the agencies at the front line of fighting this crisis. We have been making all of our meetings offline available to any member of the public who would like to call in and listen. So if you have the time at 4 o'clock, you want to know how the state is responding to the types of things you're seeing in the community, go to the legislative website. You will be able to see the simple call-in information. We have had hundreds of people from throughout the state listening in to our deliberations, which is a very strange part of this new reality that we're facing, that we have more people, I think, observing our legislative actions now when we're working remotely than we do at the State House, in part because people can call right in. Also in that vein of making our remote work accessible, I want to alert you to a few things that might be of particular interest to people who are watching. First, our Economic Development Committee, tomorrow they will be teleconferencing, available to be accessed by any member of the public who would wish, two issues that might be of interest to you. The first is unemployment insurance. They will have experts coming in to talk about what Vermont's executive order does to enable more people who are suffering right now to access our unemployment system, and also to talk about what the federal bill does as it relates to unemployment and a paid leave benefit, which they've invented for this time being. The second issue the Economic Development Committee will be looking at tomorrow is the question of evictions. Clearly, there are going to be many people who in the coming months do not have the income that they would typically have to pay their rents. The question is whether there should be a cessation on evictions for the time being until we get through this economic crisis. So anybody who is interested in individuals who might be at risk of an eviction, who are nervous or anxious about their ability to pay the rent, you may want to listen into that discussion. There will be representatives from Vermont Legal Aid and the Scott administration talking about how they recommend that we proceed. That will guide the legislative actions. Our Education Committee in the Senate is going to be talking about what's happening right now in the schools across the state. We'll have representatives from the Teachers Union, the Superintendents Association, also Secretary French, who's the Secretary of Education. They will be talking about really what's happening with the staff. I know that we have, in previous updates, I've talked about how concerned we are about the uncertainty facing many teachers who have been coming in not knowing whether they have to report for duty, what their assignments will be. Same goes for staff and administrators. So if you are particularly interested in what's expected of our schools in the days ahead, I really encourage you to call in and listen to that discussion. And then rounding it out, the Government Operations Committee. This is a committee that focuses on all the methods of governing, both at the state and local level. They are working on some emergency provisions to address something that is causing problems throughout the state, which is our current open meeting laws, which are meant to allow the public to have direct access and make sure that decisions aren't being made out of sight of the public. The current law requires that be held in a physical setting so that members of the public can attend the physical location. Obviously, we're saying that we do not want people to be gathering and convening in these ways right now so that we can suppress the spread of this virus. However, the law right now doesn't allow them to make any decisions unless we make some accommodations. So we are looking at making some emergency changes to allow everything from school boards to local commissions to be able to continue doing their business in a more remote way. The other issue that they're looking at is around elections. We are a ways away. Sometimes we wish the presidential election was yesterday, but that's a ways away. The statewide primary is in August. However, many school districts and many local communities are particularly concerned that the normal time frames for them to turn around and have either a revote on a failed school budget or municipal action that's necessary for bonding purposes, that right now they're not sure how they're going to carry out these elections at a time we're saying people can't come together, we're telling local staff to stay home, all that. So we're looking at emergency provisions. If you're at all interested in those kinds of mechanisms, please check out the Government Operations Committee site. So if you go to the legislative site and you struggle to find the committee pages with the call-in information, either message me on Facebook or email me, and I'll make sure we get that to you. I really do encourage you, especially if you have the time, you'll get some insight into the struggle we're having to adjust to all the challenges that we're facing. At this point, I think I'm going to wrap. I'll just say a quick word because I feel like one of the things that we're all perhaps rightly being focused on is the gratitude we feel for people who are at the front lines of fighting this crisis. And yesterday, usually I either go to or listen to the Dropkick Murphys, one of my favorite bands, on St. Patrick's Day. And this year they obviously couldn't be doing live concerts, so they hosted a free live concert on Facebook and played to an empty concert hall. And one of their songs, the first line stood out, which was, "This one's for the workers who toil night and day." Might be rather old-fashioned in its way of articulating it, but I think that as much as anything, I want to express my gratitude for all the people who often go unnoticed, but whose work is clearly essential to making our society hum. The grocery store clerks who are being asked to show up every day, even though that puts them at greater risk, the people who work at nursing homes and care facilities, the people who work in mental health counseling, the teachers, the child care workers, the EMS, police, fire, and so many other people who really right now are stepping up in ways that the rest of us, I think, can't fully imagine what that is for the stress on them and their families. We have people who are healthcare providers who are sleeping out in the garage to reduce the chance that they might infect their family members. The hours that people are putting in are just unbelievable. And so I just want to end with another expression of gratitude to all the people who are doing this amazing work. And it's hard to really put it in perspective right now because I think we're on the front end of what is going to be a long journey here. But every single one of their efforts is contributing to this expression of flattening the curve, which is we don't want to overuse so that it becomes cliched, but flattening the curve means saving people's lives. So every time one of these people stepping up on the front lines, taking an action that keeps people safe, it really is about saving people's lives and keeping people healthy. So I just want to say thank you to all the people who fall into that category. So keep your questions and emails coming. I will do my best to continue to provide as many responses as possible and try to tailor these messages to things that may provide a little bit more depth or clarity than some of the fast-moving social media info and things that are popping out. So keep the info coming, keep taking safe actions, and I'll talk to you tomorrow.